right, so we're super excited to be premiering our conversations from the gas station. Today we are here with Landon Metz, opening his new show at the gallery here in Basel, which we've been installing for the past 2-3 days now. Mm-hmm. And I think what's really exciting, most people are expecting some paintings by you, but it's the first show where you're showing another part of your practice.
Yes.
And it starts with the title
mm-hmm.
of the show being a poem that you wrote.
That's correct.
And poems are a part of your practice. It's something you do every day.
Yes.
So does this feel also maybe a little bit revealing, this show?
Totally. The poetry is something that I started doing, not in private, but I just was doing it for myself. I don't think I had the intention of it being public from the outset. It was just something that I started doing in the evenings as like a kind of form of, it was just like a meditation on the day, like a way of metabolizing what happened in the day. And every now and then some part of my experience would stand out as being not necessarily important or interesting, but it just felt like it had this kind of, I don't know, resonance for me. And so I would take note of it. And then over time, this kind of format started to evolve around how I would articulate those parts of my day. And then the structure evolved around the poems, where they started kind of having like a real foundation. Yeah. And they kind of revealed themselves to me as a body of work over time.
Mm-hmm. I think you said something very interesting about the photographic works in the show, that's not the actual artwork.
Right.
It was the performative gesture.
Totally.
That was shot at that moment, that was the actual artwork. So it's sort of, what would you call it? The photographic series,
It's like a record.
A record or a relic or
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all the works in this particular show they're a recording of some sort of a gesture that happens in my life with regularity. So me grabbing a coffee on Lafayette Street, or walking down Walker Street, or crossing the Brooklyn Bridge, moving through my studio, kind of organizing, cleaning things up before I prepare to make a work. Climbing the stairs in my studio, taking a moment for myself. All of these parts of my day that feel kind of pedestrian, they feel kind of just like things that happen that are very, very much could be considered an afterthought to one's life. They started to feel, as I was writing the poetry, that they weren't just like a part of my life that was, let's say, like low on the list of significance. I think everything kind of started to occupy the same space for me, and so it kind of was elevating everything. And that's not the right way of saying it. It was neutralizing my experiences, so that even really banal things in my day-to-day felt very, very, very ripe with potential.
So apart from this exhibition being very personal, I feel it's also an ode to New York.
Totally.
Tell me a bit more about your experiences in New York. I mean, you came from the desert,
right.
Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, and now you're in a bustling city that never sleeps.
Totally. I mean, growing up in Arizona, I was born in Phoenix. I mostly lived in Scottsdale, Arizona during my childhood, which is like a kind of a suburb, I guess, of Phoenix. But it was more deserty, rural, especially when I was a child. And there was this kind of sense of space there, and mm-hmm. a sense of quietness, mm-hmm. And this openness. I think I learned a lot about my own physicality there. and bringing that to a city like New York, which is very imposing. You're very aware of the size of your body in New York, not only because you're constantly moving through sidewalks and these sort of like human-made spaces, but also because you're sharing those spaces with a lot of people. And I think part of the social consensus of New York City is that you have bodily awareness so that you don't get in the way of other people. Okay. There's this kind of natural flow and rhythm to the movement of the city. Yeah. And so both of those environments have their own way of kind of thinking about space and thinking about being a person in space. And how you move through that space and how you relate to the environment and to the other people within it. And so in a way they're conflicting actually. They both have their own ideology, you know. I would say New York and Arizona definitely impacted me the most. Yeah. And New York created this, I mean, it's so full of opportunity, and I don't mean that like in a career sense. I think it's full of like enterprising thinkers, and so there's no ceiling in terms of what one can imagine there, and that really affected me and impacted me. And so I think philosophically, New York had a lot to offer as these conversations that I wasn't having elsewhere. And so there was this real like street level education happening, which I found very intoxicating, and I felt like I was part of a conversation right away. New York is a place that embraces anyone who shows up and who's willing to jump in and have something to say. Yeah. And so that vitality was just like massively alluring, and I couldn't leave. I hadn't left.
And what do you think? I mean, your son is growing up in that environment directly, not having the vast openness of the desert as a playground. How do you think that is going to shape him?
I mean, obviously there's a few ways of looking at that. I think you can break that down like we say spatially, where like obviously he's going to have an awareness of his body that's very different than mine would have been as a child in Arizona. I had immense, vast, open, empty space at my disposal as a child, and I had fun in that. You know, I occupied that space in a really cool way, and that was my own sort of freedom. I think his freedom will come in a different way. It will be more intellectual, and it will be more personal, maybe. I think his identity as a person is very free to evolve in a way that's, I think, established entirely on his own terms.
And one final question you mentioned, because there's a sound piece in the show that it's very similar when you hear it and you open the door here to Basel. We can see the people passing by. You also walked to the gallery as you walk to your studio every morning. So does it shift between the different cities and it's open to interpretation and it fits here just as well as it fits in New York?
Well, I think a few things. I mean, it's funny you mentioned this idea of walking. I've been thinking about that a lot, like how the way I move through my city versus the way I move through like a city I don't live in or know as well or know at all. Obviously, there's some sort of excitement that comes without knowing a place, and being free from like the cultural baggage of a place. Like I can pick up on like the social prerequisites of a place and a culture, but I don't have to perform them because I'm not an active participant. And there's some freedom and flexibility in that that's also kind of fun to be aware of socially. And I find that interesting. And to do these walks, like to walk from the hotel to the gallery, there's something comparable to the sound work in the show, actually. A few of the works in the show, maybe a lot of the show. And like insofar as the way I'm relating to my environment is flexible and it evolves with the environment. You know, as external stimuli shift, my relationship to that stimuli also evolves, but it feels equally as viable as a gesture. And so while it is very centered upon my experience, there's something very universal about it as well. The way we live in environments and in societies, and the way we have these cyclical relationships to the people that we have in our lives, and them coming and going, life and death, but also these very average, normal things in our life, the way we walk around, the way we entertain ourselves, and the things that we consume on a day-to-day.
But I think that's a really good note to end on, this universality that everybody can find themselves in this exhibition. So look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thank you.
Is that okay? Yeah?
I think we keep going.